do you go when you wanna go higher? See places and things, and it never expires. A book can take you anywhere. Turn the pages and you'll be there. Come on, join us, you'll see. We're reading with Carrie Lee.
Hi, friends, and thanks for joining us for another episode of the Read with Carolee Show. I'm your host, Carolee, and today we have another local author who has written a book, The Monkey and the Mask. The Mask of the Monkey. You're a live show. So I'm just going to hand it over to Mr. Jay Foreman, and it's time to tell the story.
There aren't many stories about Bailey Island. In fact, most folks don't believe the place even exists. You can't find it on any map, and only a select few people claim to have ever visited. Legend has it that only smaller, friendlier animals live there. There are no lions or tigers or gorillas or poisonous snakes. This is good because all of the animals can live in peace with one another and not have to worry about being eaten. This is also bad because if hunters would ever come to the island to take the animals away, there would be no vicious creatures to scare the humans into leaving. Of all the limited tales to come from Bailey Island, the legend of Montez the monkey is the most famous. Montez glared out of the window of his classroom, once again not paying any attention to his teacher. His best friend sat next to him. He had known Roberta the sloth and Caesar the aardvark since he was a baby chimp. Roberta and Caesar were much better students than Montez. It wasn't that Montez wasn't smart, he just didn't care about what they were being taught. Instead of learning about history and reading and math, they were learning about the jobs they were expected to perform in their village. Later at lunch, Montez's friends warned him about goofing off too much in school. "Do you know how much trouble you'll be in if your grades slip?" asked Roberta. "Who cares?" replied Montez. "We only learn about the jobs we're supposed to have after we graduate. What if we want to do something different with our lives?" "Like what?" asked Caesar. "I'd rather follow my heart and chase my dream of making masks one day." "You'd rather make masks than do your assigned job of climbing trees and being a lookout for enemies?" asked Caesar. "Yes," yelled Montez. "Being a lookout is boring. Nobody ever comes here. Nobody knows this island even exists. I know that if I were to ever see an enemy, I sound the alarm and then we all take cover in the hidden caves on the south side of the island. But guess what? Nobody's coming. The lookout job is a waste of time." "And making masks isn't?" asked Roberta. "No," answered Montez. "At least then I'm doing something that I love." "We each have our own job to do," said Caesar. "Roberta helps with the gardening, I help with keeping the village clean, and you help with watching out for bad guys. It's just the way it is." "Well, maybe something needs to change," said Montez as he walked away. During his shift as lookout, Montez couldn't stop thinking about how miserable he was and how he would rather be spending time practicing what he enjoyed most, making masks. "Forget this," said Montez. "Nothing's happening today. Just like yesterday, and every day before that. Nobody will miss me if I leave my shift a little early and go make some new masks." Montez swung away and just missed a strange boat sailing toward Bailey Island. Colonel Becker and his son Gilchrist had deciphered an old treasure map and found their way to Bailey Island. This wasn't good for any animal that lived there. Colonel Becker had a reputation for being the meanest and nastiest zookeeper in the world, and he was heading to Bailey Island to hunt new animals and take them back with him. As soon as they arrived, they saw Roberta watering some plants in the garden. Roberta saw them too, but she was too slow to escape. Colonel Becker and Gilchrist threw a net on Roberta, and just like that, they had their first prisoner. As Montez was working on his latest mask, Tubby the tree frog hopped into his room and told him all about Roberta being captured by two outsiders. Montez knew immediately that this was his fault and that he had to do something about it. "Quickly," he said to Tubby, "take me to their boat." Without hesitation, Montez and Tubby took off toward Colonel Becker's boat, grabbing Caesar along the way. Montez, Caesar, and Tubby were very quiet as they snuck up to Colonel Becker's boat. They could hear the colonel and Gilchrist talking on the deck. "We'll wait until nightfall and then attack," said Colonel Becker. "That way we'll catch them off guard. It'll be easier to capture those animals. Since there aren't any ferocious animals on this island, this is going to be like taking candy from a baby." Colonel Becker and Gilchrist both laughed. "Wait," said Gilchrist. "You're positive there aren't any lions here, right?" "Of course," replied Colonel Becker. "If there were, we wouldn't have come here in the first place." Then they both began laughing again. This gave Montez an idea. Montez, Caesar, and Tubby raced back to the village, and Montez shared his idea with them. Caesar and Tubby were a little scared that the plan wouldn't work, but it was all they had, and nightfall was coming. Caesar and Tubby agreed to gather up everyone from the village and meet at the edge of town at dusk. It was too late to head to the hidden caves. Colonel Becker already had one of their own that they needed to get back. Montez ran home to start working like he'd never worked before. Montez grabbed every single one of his mask-making supplies and began. A short time later, right at dusk, all of the animals of the village had gathered. Tubby and Caesar explained to them what had happened to Roberta and that Montez had a plan for getting her back and for keeping them all safe. Montez explained his plan, gave each animal a freshly made mask, and assigned them their positions all around the perimeter of the village. All of the animals put on their masks and then waited. Everyone was scared, but this was their only shot. Once night had fallen, Colonel Becker and Gilchrist slowly approached the village. They both had their nets raised, ready to pounce on the unsuspecting animals. In their other hands, they both carried flashlights, shining the light into the bushes in front of them. All of a sudden, to their surprise, they saw 5 lion heads pop out of the bushes. Before they could scream in fright, they heard loud roars coming from that direction. "I thought you said there weren't any lions here, Daddy," shouted Gilchrist. "There weren't supposed to be any lions," yelled Colonel Becker. At that moment, another 10 lion heads popped up from another bush. Then 5 more lion heads appeared from behind a tree. Then another 20 emerged from the jungle. The roaring was becoming louder and louder. Colonel Becker and Gilchrist had seen enough. They dropped their gear and ran toward their boat, screaming. While they had been away, Caesar and Tubby had rescued Roberta from the boat. "Okay, you can take your masks off now," shouted Montez. All of the animals from the village slowly emerged from the bushes, trees, and jungles. They were all wearing the lion masks that Montez had made to scare off their enemies. "We were wrong to make fun of you for wanting to chase your dreams," said Roberta. "It was your passion to make masks, and that ended up saving us all." The mayor of the village, Toucan Tom, came forward and spoke. "Perhaps it's time we start matching our jobs with our skill sets and our passions." Then he approached Montez and said, "My grandfather had a saying. He said, if you can't stop thinking about it, don't stop working for it. Thanks for reminding us all of these valuable words." After that, all of the animals chose enjoyable jobs that showed off their skill sets. Everyone was a lot happier living out their dreams. As for Montez, he opened up super masks. Business was slow all year except for Halloween, when there would be a line out the door all month. Montez never got rich by making and selling masks, but he enjoyed what he did every single day and truly lived happily ever after. The end.
Jade, that was truly an interesting story, and I love the ending, of course, because we do so many things, for our jobs, and sometimes we don't do things that align with our passion. So that is definitely a lesson that I wish that I had gotten when I was younger, and something that children today should have instilled in them. So what was your intention or your inspiration behind writing the book?
One of the saddest things I found is that students, even at an early age, up to 5th grade, are already starting to give up on their dreams.
Yeah.
And they said, well, I wanted to be an astronaut in 1st grade, or I want to be president, but I don't think I have what it takes. I said, why not? There's no reason not to chase our dreams and believe we can be anything we want to be. So that was the motivation behind writing the book.
That's Well, I'm glad that I'm actually chasing my dream right now
right.
with this show. And I'm so thankful that you wrote this book to be able to show children that it's important to chase their dream. So, what was your favorite book growing up?
My all-time favorite book growing up was a book by Judy Blume called Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing. Oh yes, yes, I love it. Yes, give it up for that. And if I read that book once, I read it 20 times. And one of my favorite stories is when I got to the back. I'm going to date myself. When I got to the back, I found Judy Blume's address, and this was well before email or text or anything like that. So I wrote Judy Blume a letter. I wrote Judy Blume a letter, and I told her just how much I love her books, how much I loved her as an author. And I decided to give her an idea for a new book. I'm sure she loved that. And I sent that to Judy Blume. 3 weeks later, I get a handwritten letter back from Judy Blume telling me, thank you, I appreciate the kind words. Thank you for the story idea, but I think you should write a story. I think you should be an author. And right there, all it takes is one person to encourage someone. And that was it. My path was set from that point on. In fact, a couple years ago, I found Judy Blume on Facebook. And I messaged her and I said, look, I don't expect you to remember me from Adam. I said, I just want to let you know. I said, you changed the course of my life, and I appreciated your help. And I've reached out to her, now and then a couple times. I'm not stalking her, but I've reached out a couple times, and it's just great. And I found even the folks I've met here today, authors are this great fraternity of folks that we want to help each other, and it's a great community to be a part of it. Thank you for what you do, bringing us all together as well.
Thank you. Well, yeah, absolutely. That is, one of the points of the show, to be able to inspire our next generation to do what they love. And thank you so much for writing this book. This is definitely an inspiration, and you have continued to be an inspiration to us all. Thank you so much for joining us with the Read with Carolee show, and thank you for joining us today. And if you would like a chance to get your own signed copy of today's book, email us at read@readwithcarolee.com. Thank you for joining us, and if you're ever in the Prince William County area, come on down to Girardi Coffee House. We're here every first Saturday, and join the Read with Carolee audience. And you too can have a chance of winning a book live. So remember, the tickets are free. You can go on to readwithcarolee.com and register. So always remember to grab a book and read. It may inspire you someday.
We're reading with Carolee. Reading with Carrie, reading with Carrie, reading with Carrie, reading with Carrie.
Thanks for watching another amazing episode of the Read with Carolee show. We have amazing authors coming by every week. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe below. You don't want to miss a thing.